Okay, we're live again. Okay, once again, we are live. This is going to be part 2, and hold on while I connect my equipment because of a malfunction that we did not foresee happening. Sorry about that.
Though. That Punisher.
And here it goes. I got to mute this thing now again. Unbelievable. I got to really figure out how to fix this. Sorry about that. All right, there we go. Muted that. You're up. And now I got to put you up a little bit. You hear? All right. Frank Castle, Face Man.
Check 1, 2.
What's up, Frankie FearLess?
How you doing?
Oh, God.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. We actually have 2 viewers now. This is wonderful. All right, so the people are starting to filter.
Sorry for the late start.
Back in. Yes, it happens. I know. So, anyways, I spoke in the last video, because the other one already posted live, and I hope people don't think it's just over now, about the Battlefield 5 controversy. So that's over and done with. Do you have anything to comment about? Did you hear anything that I was saying before? Do you have anything you want to say about that as far as voting with your dollar and things like that concerning?
What is it about? I heard nothing. I had no connection whatsoever. So,
for the sake of not having redundancy, we're gonna just move it along, and keep it moving.
Is it in-game purchases and stuff?
Well, basically, a quick crash course. Battlefield 5 came out, or is coming out, and the main female protagonist has a metal arm, and she's in World War II. But the people that play Battlefield 5 are like authentic junkies, and there was a big backlash. And the guy Patrick Sutherland, who was the chief design officer, said that the fans are uneducated, and you have to accept this or don't buy the game.
Don't buy the game then. Oh, I know. The girl controversy with the main girl character?
Yes, exactly. So there was very weak orders. People were like, we're not buying your game. And then a couple of days later, the guy resigns after being with the company for over 12 years. So
this is what you got to do.
That's it.
You got to do with your dollar right there.
Exactly.
All right. I got to let Sherman out. I'll be right back.
Okay. Sherman's, I guess, the cat. I know that Frankie FearLess has cats. So anyways, moving along, we took a look at the toys on the table here. I'm bringing my show notes back up. We spoke about the Battlefield 5 controversy and kicked off the last video with that. So we're going to move it along right now to unfortunate, sad tidings with the rest in peace of Jim Neidhart of the Hart Foundation. Now, this happened last week. This didn't happen this week, but last week, as you guys know, I was at TerrifiCon. So we're going to do a very short segment on rest in peace, Jim Neidhart. And I do know that Frankie FearLess is an old school WWF fan. So give us a little bit of background with maybe when you first came into liking WWF at the time, WWE now, and give us some idea of how you feel about the passing of Jim Neidhart.
All right, check this out. I remember being like a really young kid sitting in front of the TV, and I had watched wrestling many times. I thought it was really cool. People like Sergeant Slaughter and moves like the camel clutch and all that other stuff. And it was good. Snuka off the top ropes and everything. But something changed when the guys in pink and black showed up. When Bret Hart came out and the anvil held whoever they were holding up in the air that night, and he threw the clothesline off the rope and took him off the anvil's, shoulders. That was like a new thing at that time. Like that was like stepping it up a notch. And I remember sitting there watching that live for the first time. Like, this is amazing. Right. And then I have this amazing, I remember watching the 2 out of 3 falls match with the Rockers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, dude, were you with me for the live event when we
watched that? That was I think Saturday night's main event, and I want to say it was in either. I want to say it was in 89 or 90.
It was amazing. They threw it down like nothing I ever seen.
Yeah. And the Hart Foundation had a nice storied career before it even got to that point. They came out for the first time in WrestleMania 3 during the Battle Royal. For those that follow Red Cup Review on Facebook, saw that when Anvil died, I put a post up. When the Hart Foundation first showed up, they were wearing actually blue and black. They weren't in pink and black at that time. And out of everybody that was in this, nowadays they do this inaugural over the top rope battle royal in honor of Andre the Giant because of that match. So out of all the guys that were in that match, oh, I'm sorry, this was, I think, WrestleMania 2. Was it 2 or 3? It was either WrestleMania 2 or 3. Anyways, the last 3 guys in the ring were the Hart Foundation, who had just debuted as a team, and Andre the Giant. And they were doing their moves on him, and they had him on the ropes, and then eventually Andre overpowered the Hart Foundation and won the first Battle Royal. The Hart Foundation was doing that crazy tag team stuff before they even fought. The Rockers match was out
way later.
But they were fighting guys like the Killer Bees and the Brain Busters and the Fabulous Rougeaus even before then. And the matches were always classic. Every time that those guys had on, I think that, to me, they're the best tag team of all time because they had the perfect combination of power in Anvil and
execution,
excellence of execution in Bret Hart. Exactly. And they just, they had the cool sunglasses, the leather jackets, it just happened to work.
It worked for them hardcore.
Do you have a favorite Jim the Anvil Neidhart and or Hart Foundation moment?
Specific to him, look at my beard. Look. Right? The moment was I saw him and was like, oh, this works. Wait till I get older. I'm going to be like that guy. Right? Because when I was younger, I could move like Bret Hart. Now I move like the Anvil, right? Like a big football player. Just rah, 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 rah. I always love that kind of guy because it always reminded me of having your boy with you.
Yeah.
No, the Anvil. All right. Me and this kid, Mark, used to sit in the playground and we would sit there and kids would wrestle and we'd get up and he'd start rubbing his fake beard because we were in the 4th grade. Right. And everyone knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
Someone was about to get picked up and I was going to run full speed and I was going to take you out with a clothesline.
Yeah, that was
I don't have a moment specific for him. I have a million moments with them.
Yeah. All right. So the moment,
his look was pretty much part of the okayness of what I do today. So that was him.
You can see the influence right on your face, but I don't want
to say it.
Give me your all right, give me your favorite Hart Foundation moment or just one that sticks out in your mind.
All right. I remember the 2 out of 3 falls match when they pulled the move, right? Everyone was doing their power moves, their team moves. And you remember meeting the Rockers in the Westchester County Fair? Was it the Killer Bees?
Killer Bees, yeah.
Right. Do you remember seeing them there?
No.
Okay. Oh, you were mad young. Okay. I was standing right next to them and I was like, yay. And they were like, get out of here, kid. Right. And I went, and that's why the Hart Foundation smashed your face. Right. And they were just like, whoa. Yeah.
Cool.
And I didn't like them after that. Right. I couldn't dig them. I liked them, but they were the heel to me. Yeah. So just smashing them at any time. And that was my crew. I think that was our crew. Then when we were growing up, didn't we? Like, we're them. I remember every time picking a wrestler, I wanted to be Bret Hart, and my partner was the Anvil.
Yeah. Well, Jim got his nickname, the Anvil. He used to play for the Raiders. He was actually a football player for a very short period of time in the early 80s. And he got his name, the Anvil, by joining. He signed up for a strongman competition, and he actually threw an anvil the furthest, and he won the competition. That's where he got the Anvil. One thing I always thought was funny is that Jim the Anvil, Neidhart, and Bret Hart, it's like they're not like, those aren't made up names. That's their real names. And they both trained in the dungeon. I believe Anvil was, I don't know. The Anvil was part of the whole dungeon crew with Stu Hart because eventually the Anvil married Bret's sister, and they actually became brother-in-laws. And Neidhart, Bret Hart, it just worked,
Soul brothers.
Exactly. It was just meant to be. Real quick, do you think the LJN wrestling figure will go up in price? Probably not. My favorite match with the Hart Foundation was the match, it was mentioned in the comments here, with Demolition. It was in SummerSlam 1990. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match against Demolition. And at this point, Demolition had the tag team champions, the tag team belts. They were the champions. Behind the scenes, Axe was actually on his way out as a wrestler because he couldn't really just do it anymore. So they brought in Crush, the third member of Demolition. And it was Axe, Smash, and Crush, basically, but only 2 of them can come to ringside. So a quick recap of the match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match where the Hart Foundation had to take on Demolition for the belts. Well, Demolition cheated and got the first fall by using their famous move where the guy go off the top rope and elbowed the dude. I forgot the name of that move, but so they get Bret Hart and get the first fall, right? The second fall comes when they're able to do the heart attack. That was their famous move.
That's what it's called, the heart attack.
Demolition, right. So they get the second fall. Then during the third fall, they're beating the crap out of Bret Hart the whole time, basically. Jim's doing what he can to kind of hold them back as best he can, but Demolition keeps switching out because one of the members is hiding under the ring. So every time the ref turns his back, one member ducks out, the other member comes up, and he's a fresh guy. So they're constantly tagging and having a fresh. So the Hart Foundation can't do anything, right? So the Legion of Doom comes down to the ring in the middle of the match and gets the attention of Demolition. They pull Axe out from under the ring. They actually pull him out and like kind of expose that they're doing like this 3-card Monty like tag team thing going on. In the middle of all this going on, I believe it was Crush was yelling at them from inside the ring, and he turned around and Bret Hart crawled under his legs real quick, and Jim Neidhart launched himself over the top turnbuckle and gave him a flying shoulder block, and Bret rolled him up for the pin, and that was it. 1, 2, 3, 2-time World Tag Team Champions, the Hart Foundation, and that was the second, and they only held the belt twice. So that was the second time they won it, and then the next year at SummerSlam 1991 is when Bret kind of went on his own, and he fought R.I.P, and then he became a singles guy after that, and the Hart Foundation was no more. But that was like their marquee moment for me.
That's pretty amazing right there. And I remembered as you were talking about him doing I was like, didn't he do like a flying tackle?
That was his thing, like this giant flying shoulder. Like you don't realize, like
that's like a football player that you would draw, someone like him, right? Like a crazy lineman, but now he's in the ring with you. I mean, he doesn't have a uniform on. He's just got the spandex, and he's about to smash you.
Yeah, he was a big, thick dude, man. He was only about, I want to say 5'10" or 5'11", but he was like coming in at like 320 pounds.
He's like a power guy.
Solid. He had the big belly, but he wasn't fat belly. Like it never hung over his pants. He was more of a power lifter type guy. So it worked. It just worked. So R.I.P. Jim the Anvil Neidhart. You know,
did he hit his head?
Excuse me?
He hit his head.
Yes, this is how he died. He was basically got up in the middle of the night. He was having like hot flashes or something in bed. He couldn't sleep. He was like restless through his sleep during the week. And he got up to touch the thermostat. And his wife was like, Jim, what are you doing? This is from the wife herself. So this isn't just conjecture. And she said that he turned around as if he was dancing. Like he did like a pirouette to her, like as if he was going to like turn around, hey, and come back to bed. And she said he turned around. And as he was spinning, he went through his spin and kind of hit the floor and smashed his head. And he had a 4-inch gash on his head. And he basically died from an impact from the fall.
Well, when you're going to go, you're going to go.
Yeah. Now, the British Bulldogs, yes, that was the other tag team they fought, and they had great matches with the British Bulldogs. Did he marry Bret's other sister? Yes, the British Bulldog also married into the family as well.
Remember when we met
during SummerSlam? Was it 90? Was it 91? I think it was SummerSlam 91 that they fought in England, where the British. It was the first time a non-title event was headlining. So it was for the Intercontinental title. It was Bret Hart against the British Bulldog, and the British Bulldog won. He actually beat Bret Hart. It's funny. Most of Bret Hart's best matches was when he lost, even though he was like fantastic in the ring and did his thing. He had a lot of really great matches when he won, but he really knew how to put on a show and put a guy over. And British Bulldog won that match. Okay.
I always thought with Bret Hart, when he went up in from the Chris Jericho beginning level, right, like that mid-intercontinental guy, and he jumped into the main card, he didn't have enough strength to beat those guys and pull it off. So he'd give it his all, and then he'd like put them over.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what
it was like. What?
That's why he never got. They have a bad. There's a lot of bad blood between Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan because of that reason. Because Hogan was like, yo, he's not big enough to fight me in the ring.
He's not. I never thought he was.
No, he really wasn't. But then you got things like Jericho fighting The Rock.
Jericho has no right to be in there either. You know that as well. But in the Intercontinental range, he's the greatest thing on 2 feet. Come on, you know that. We used to scream in the basement about.
Oh yeah, well I know. Well,
Jericho would hit Triple H with the
I get it.
spin,
I
and
totally
he'd
get it.
run for his life.
Who?
Jericho, he'd hit him with the spin, and it would be like he was out of character. Back when Jericho was awesome, right? Like you'd see him in the ring with Triple H, and it'd be like, "Yo, you better pull off all your moves quick, because when he grabs you, you're done."
Yeah.
Right. And that's what would happen. He'd beat him up a little bit and then he'd run or get his thing back. And, I think H stole the belt from him once and he did something like that. Right.
Yeah.
He had to move quick because you're not beating him to being in the ring with him, going toe to toe at another WrestleMania or something. I never thought that was plausible. I met Randy Macho Man, right? Like a long time ago. And he was working out in the gym. And I saw him and I didn't think he was big enough. And he was huge.
Well, he got really big.
That's when he was huge. When he was like ripped out of his face. Oh yeah, when he was a solo guy, just after, I think it was after Elizabeth. It was like in that time. Did he go like bad guy for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was during that time. He was at the gym in the neighborhood one day, and he was pumping weight, and he just, I wouldn't look at him. Like I saw him, but everyone was bothering him, and then he just started talking to me. Just for like 2 minutes. He was telling me about the weights and why he uses low weight and high reps. And I hate to talk about this, but Chris Benoit said the same thing. So when we had the people that were working out there that kind of looked at him like, wow, we started doing that. It was like a lighter weight, do everything in one shot. So you're always agile and ready. You get big in the first shot. But I was like, dude, this guy hangs out with Hogan. And there's no way he's big enough to do that.
Yeah, no, the in my mind, or because I'm a Bret Hart sycophant, he's so good at what he does that if he's not playing the powers game, he could beat you. Like the way Kurt Angle was able to beat these guys. You're just that damn. Well, I mean, look, Kurt Angle was also an Olympic champion of wrestling and all that other shit, but he was just so good at submitting and pins and knew more moves that he forgot more moves than you even knew. Like that's how they build him. Bret Hart forgot more stuff than you even know.
That's still cool, man. As you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, he's the man.
A guy like Hogan, he had big time matches against Diesel, Kevin Nash, and Kevin Nash would destroy him the whole match. And Bret would pull it out of his ass with a small package or some kind of crucifix pin or throw him in the sharpshooter after working on his legs for a while, keeping him horizontal for most of the match. We're talking about this like it's real. But anyways, in this real thing that we're talking about, okay, that's how it works in wrestling world. All right. I want to move along if you're ready to move along. You have anything else to say about the Hart Foundation?
Yeah. Yeah, they're great. I love them.
Pretty much.
They're great. McMahon with the screw job.
The Montreal screw. Well, I don't want to get into a Bret Hart thing. This was supposed to be about.
It would be funny if McMahon just came in right now and did the screw job right to the two of us. But like, okay, this is what's up, guys.
He did it because you've been trying to get on the show for the first 15 minutes of the show, and it just wasn't happening.
With the devil face, red cup.
So, okay, I want to segue into another piece of news this week. Bruce Campbell is returning as Ash in a video game. Ash versus the Evil Dead, or an Evil Dead video game, is coming out, and Bruce Campbell is reprising his role as Ash for the video game. And it's great news. As long as the game is great, I think it'll be great news. Do you like the Army of Darkness and Bruce Campbell and all that stuff?
Yes.
I think he's awesome.
I had some trouble at first with let me rewind that. I really enjoyed season 1 of his show, Ash vs. the Evil Dead.
Yep.
And then it played down season 2 and 3 for me. I don't know what happened to me during that time. I was like turned off by it. It was too much, I think, watching the gore.
Right.
Maybe I'm just getting older or whatever. And then I'm like, nah, you got to have fun with that. And then went back and watched everything. And then caught straight up and watched it like it was crack.
Binge watched it, yeah.
Oh, no, it was awesome. And all right, so I used to bug out back in the day. I'm like, didn't Evil Dead and Evil Dead isn't there 2 movies that are first movies?
Yeah, Evil Dead, right? The original Evil Dead was Sam Raimi's first film, and it was an independent film, and he made a horror movie, right? So then they decided to go back and make Evil Dead 2, and Evil Dead 2 is kind of like a soft reboot of the first Evil Dead because it hits all the same beats with a couple of changed scenes, but it's more of a comedy. But the special effects are a little bit better. His budget was bigger, so it's almost a better movie. But at the same time, if you're not into the horror comedy element, it's not as good of a movie because the first one is definitely scarier. The second one, though, has a lot more cooler stuff in it.
Yes, I remember seeing a video recently, that the end of the first movie, when he leaves or something, he never really leaves, and then he's returning, and it's like the crazy dream. Like it gets that's what was really happening. Like the nightmarish thing occurred. He thought he was bouncing, but then he went right back into it again. It almost it's just like a repeat function of what just occurred, and he went like cuckoo from it. Like Groundhog Day almost.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's an interesting theory.
I wish they would come out with like a pure explanation for that, like why they did that. Not just the fact that they wanted to make a soft reboot, but it would be cool for them to work that into the lore somehow. Like maybe the book made him replay, like at the end of the
movie, it was like
a we find out in Ash versus the Evil Dead that he's like the El Jefe, the chosen one, right?
Oh, that's so awesome.
It was great, right? So he's written into the Necronomicon as some kind of like, the prophecy,
the chief.
Come and fight the Evil Dead. So maybe it was the way that the book kind of like trapped him in like this Groundhog Day type situation. They should definitely maybe work that into the game or something because you're not going to get him. He's retired from Ash. You're not going to get him playing Ash anymore.
But it does that in I think season 2. Right at the end of season 1, doesn't he think he's victorious? And they say whatever you want, it's great. And he's like, oh, he drives off to Asheville or something.
Right, yeah.
And then it's just like, whoa, he's being tricked again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Could be those soft loops.
I want to go with that as a personal law. That is pretty cool.
I mean, I'll tell you what I love about Ash. I love his connection through Marvel Comics sometimes, through the Necronomicon, and I also like it connected to Freddy and Jason. I liked it. I actually think it should connect to every evil villainous thing. If the villainous thing gets out of control and ridiculous, like and there's 4 or 5 movies of a certain thing, there at any time you can insert Ash flipping through the book, making a mistake.
Right, yeah.
Saying the words wrong and winding up there.
I don't remember or recall if this was from a comic book or not. I think it was from a comic that they pretty much added to the lore of the Evil Dead by saying that Jason from the Friday the 13th series is a demon conjured from the Necronomicon. Yes. Jason drowns in the pool as a kid. The mother, Miss Voorhees, comes in possession of the Necronomicon and is able to raise him from the dead. And then he grows up to be the demon, Jason, which is why he can't die, because he's a friggin' demon from the Necronomicon. The book, the actual book, was found at the Voorhees house, like somewhere in the Crystal Lake area or at the Voorhees house or something. They wrote that into the lore as well. I also think that the idea that because Freddy is connected to them, I like the idea that Freddy is like a dream demon brought about from the Necronomicon. I think that's a pretty cool idea, using that book as the
He's almost like a djinn, like a genie, like an evil genie.
Yeah.
Right? So I like that as well about him.
The book is filled, as you can see from the TV shows, the book is filled with all different types of monsters and crazy things you could summon, and I kind of like the idea that this is like the linchpin to all this crazy stuff. It's great if Ash versus... There's an actual comic, Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. I haven't been able to read it because it's mad expensive. It's out of print. You can't even get the trade paperbacks are like $40-50 a piece. So I'm trying to get it like on digital. Eventually, I'll be able to read these things on digital.
Yo, Ash and the Ghostbusters versus the Evil Dead.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. That's a pretty cool.
Come on, bro. You wouldn't like an animated cartoon of that?
Yeah, no, it would be like awesome.
Something off the charts. Like he would bring that element into their world, and they'd be like, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
he would be fighting that elevated monster.
What is your favorite Evil Dead thing? Movie, the TV show? What's your favorite Evil Dead thing with Ash?
Okay. Oh, with Ash. All right. I have a couple of things that I really like that have to do with just everything about it, what Ash is part of. But one with Ash, two with Ash. Okay, I think it was at the end of the first movie I don't know if it might have been the end of the second movie. I don't remember. The giant head.
That was the second movie.
Okay. All right. When I saw that, we talk about things that ruin our childhood a little bit.
That was pretty freaky. I saw that recently, like last Halloween. That shit was pretty crazy.
All right, we watched Reanimator, you and I, and something was taken from me during that movie. All right. Something was taken from me during Full Metal Jacket, and something was taken from me when that head came out. Right. There was like a fear just set into me because, all right, the whole time there's something following them, moving through the forest really fast. And you're like, what is that? I always wondered what is following them. And then they're like, I want to see that. And then it turns out it's like a giant Pac-Man monster head. It looks like a mad ball.
Yeah.
Right? That's just gigantic.
Yeah.
That's pretty frightening, a giant head.
It was, that definitely was. It was
he was right over the door, like, dude, that was frightening.
It's eating him, basically.
Yeah, it was like getting attacked by Jaws, except you're not in the water.
Pretty much. My favorite. Okay, do you have a few more?
One more. I'm Big Ash. And you're Small Ash, right? that thing that he did.
That was Army of Darkness.
Dude, that was so funny to me. I don't know why, but I'll never forget that. There was something about him. I loved Army of Darkness. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was so much fun.
My favorite Ash moment, or Ash moments, I should say, is Army of Darkness and the Evil Dead TV show, the Ash versus the Evil Dead TV show. And the reason why I'm going with the TV show is because you got 3 seasons, an hour apiece for each, half hour apiece for each episode, 10 episodes long. You got hours and hours after years. You're talking almost 30 years of waiting for this type of stuff. 20 years since Army of Darkness, 30 years since the original Evil Dead. And now you got a whole bunch that they gave you, and it's actually very well written, and it's fun, and we already talked about it, how campy it is, but it's also tongue-in-cheek, and it's great. It's fun, a lot of blood and gore and all that good stuff. Anyways, Army of Darkness, favorite Evil Dead movie. I love the craziness and zaniness of it. It was cool. It was a nice little twist. I actually saw that in the theater and probably had no business going to see that in the theater because I believe I was around 8 years old.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay, let's go see this crazy horror movie that really wasn't much of a horror movie. It didn't give me nightmares or anything like that, but it was just being that young and seeing that was extra cool. And I have the poster up on my wall, actually, on my movie wall. So that will forever stay there. And
that last season of the TV show is crack awesome. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's awesome. I watched it, and Lucy Lawless.
Yes.
Right? Okay. She's awesome as a villain.
Yes, she's awesome.
Awesome. And the girls that were the whole group, I've grown to love every character. But my favorite is the Bruja Especial, right? watching him grow into the character and go down. I absolutely love it. But when she bites the cord, when she has the baby in the car,
right?
Spoiler alert, and then she bites the cord while she's sitting. Yeah, I left the room sweating like I was gonna faint.
Yeah, no, it's pretty nasty. I mean, they did that. Those
movies really pushed the envelope.
Yeah,
with grossness. And
definitely a lot of, and it was just spooky, and he's hilarious, and they did a really good work. The King, right here, man.
When he was in the prom, right, running around with the chainsaw, I was sitting back laughing for a good 15. I was like, oh, you know what's going to happen now. Kids are getting chopped in half. And wrong.
Oh, the dance scene.
Yeah, that was so much fun to watch, that part.
Yes, it most certainly was. And this will not be Bruce Campbell was in a video game before. He did a lot of voiceovers. I remember years and years ago, he was in a game for PS1 called Broken Helix, which was a real-time action game. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Broken Helix, go type it into YouTube and check out this game. It was the first real-time action game where you were doing things and exploring the world as the hero, and things were happening in real time. So there was you were in this building, and you're the hero character, played by Ash, voiced by Bruce Campbell. You weren't Ash. You were just Bruce Campbell was the main character. And as you went through the levels, there were these villains, like a group of villains that were coming after you, like up elevators and stuff because it took place in the building. And if you spent, like as the game starts, a timer in the background goes off. So if you spend your time on the first level just doing whatever, after like you're just exploring, after like 10, 15 minutes, these villains will show up and kill you, and the game is over. Now, if you progress through the game, not that they'll just show up. As you're progressing, if you hang out for like the first 10 minutes of the game, these guys show up and you die because there's no way to beat them at that point. Your character's not powerful enough. However, if you keep progressing through the game, it's not like you only have 10 minutes and they're going to keep showing up. 10 minutes from that point, if you're on the 3rd level of the building, they just got to the 1st level. So you have to constantly keep, it's like an invisible clock that's ticking, stopping you from just waiting around because these guys are coming after you. And then eventually you have to fight them and all that other good stuff. But it was just a pretty cool, inventive little thing that they had going on for the first time in a video game. And Bruce Campbell just so happened to do the voiceover for it.
Nice.
So anyways, there was a funny little thing he said in the game too. Like you were actually able to go up to the toilets and go to the bathroom. Like you didn't see it. You just the character's back was turned and you'd hear like the pee hit in the toilet. And just one of those things from when that just stick in your head. He zips himself up and Bruce Campbell goes, "The last drop's always in your pants." So just funny, and it's like every time I hit a urinal, that just goes into my head. Like, not that you try to make sure it isn't, but it's just funny.
It's funny you say that because his classic line, "This is my boomstick," I am sure has been used infinite times in situations across the board that involve many things.
Oh yeah, no, totally. You could definitely forget it.
This is my boomstick.
So, one of the topics we were going to talk about tonight was favorite toy lines of all time. Now, before we get into what our favorites are, I want to preface this by saying that these aren't necessarily the best toy lines of all time. These are our favorite. So I asked Mr. Fearless to come up with his 5 favorite toy lines of all time, non-high end. So excludes things like Mezco and Hot Toys, and it's not company related. So, my favorite toy line of all time, one of them is Mezco. It's like, no, Mezco isn't a toy line. It's a company that happens to make toys. So we're focusing mostly on toy lines that impacted us. And when we choose to do 5 and keep it simple, I don't know if you put yours in order. I put mine in order, and I'm going to give you the floor.
Okay, well, I would like to get the obvious ones out of the way, but I had a problem. I think I told you when I was writing this, when I thought about myself after seeing the list, I thought of myself as like, when everybody likes a song and you're like, why does everybody like that song? Well, I have a lot of those kind of action figure kind of things on my list, right? Like things that you would think are like, well, everyone likes that.
Okay.
Right. And I'm like, well, that's kind of generic, but not because I love some of them so much. But Marvel Legends is my absolute favorite.
Okay.
Okay. The 6 to 7 inch character figures, sometimes a little bit bigger and smaller when they're in size, which now they're doing excellent, are what a kid from the 70s has been waiting for their whole lives. We had that 8-inch toy line where you put the clothes on the figures. I had thought about that one, the old figures, right? So I had a whole bunch of them and I love them, but I used to look at them and say, why don't they look like the character? Like it wasn't enough for me. When I saw my first Marvel Legend, I dropped it. I was like, whoa, and you went berserk. It was absolute butter. So for me, my number one, but up to that moment, I had others because there was nothing like a Marvel Legend. So I kind of split my time between when I love Marvel Legends and the ones I love from then on, and then the toy lines from before that moment.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how I kind of like to split it up. You want me to just keep rolling with them?
Yeah, keep going, man. You're
Okay,
gonna do
cool.
yours, and I'm gonna do mine.
To keep in rolling with the Marvel Legends, my absolute butter favorite are the DC Universe Classics. I know, but I'm gonna make points on the other end. Okay.
Well, there's a reason why I'm laughing. You'll find out later. Continue.
I can't not love those action figures, fully articulated Supermans and Batmans, and being able to have Batman and Robin and not have stiff leg and stiff neck, right? Like it's always like Michael Keaton style. Let me turn my whole body to look at you. Like I'm like, where's my action figure? Where's my set of the Justice League? Where's my Green Lantern and Flash? and they came out with all of them. And it was, I had fits between them and the Marvel Legends, absolute fits of what was more fantastic, but yet they all go together. Awesome. I'm going to keep rolling.
Keep
with the
rolling.
last
For those
one.
type in the chats what your favorite action figure lines of all time were too, and we'll kind of answer whatever and say as it goes. So go ahead, continue.
So as I started with this list and realized I had to push forward from Marvel Legends to the DC Universe Classics line, Star Wars Black is absolute crack. Now that's the last I'm going to say about that kind of lines. Those are more the newer lines.
Right.
And it's like, oh man, everyone likes those. Yeah, I love them though. I
Right.
absolutely think it's awesome. I think every toy line should somewhat incorporate some ways so their action figures work with the universe of the 7-inch to the 6-inch, to the 8-inch line.
Well,
So whatever.
6 and 7-inch scale, 6-inch scale. Bigger figures in the 6-inch scale falling in the 7-inch range, and the small figures falling in the 5.5-inch range. But of all, like, you have a character like Robin, he's got to be 5.5 inches if Batman's going to be 6. So
Exactly.
6-inch action figures are where it's at. You get the perfect amount of playability. You get great paint applications and face sculpts and things like that. It seems like a lot of the last three things you mentioned, Marvel Legends, DC Universe Classics, Black Series, are like the ultimate versions, to ape what you said earlier, from what you were waiting for as a kid. So you had all these other lines that were, you had like the Secret Wars from back in the day from Marvel. You had the superpowers for DC, and you had the regular Star Wars Kenner stuff from back in the late 70s, early 80s. But these are like the absolute pinnacle of what those figures are. It took 30 years of engineering for them to come out, but you got
right, so I wanted the legs to finally open on the characters so I could pose them with a bendable knee and bendable ankles and be able to turn their wrists. How about an open hand so you could put something in other than some weirdo shield that only Captain America is supposed to have a shield, but you got Secret Wars. Now every character has a shield. It was just really jumbled nonsense until that stuff hit. But it all had to start somewhere.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So my absolute number one on the list. Okay. I'm torn. I'm really torn, but I'm really not.
Well, you got 3 so far, so you got 2 left.
I know. I made 6. I put 6 down. Right.
Well, then just say them.
Well, no. It's 2 more, but then I have honorable mentions. Ha. Okay, so G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
All right, G.I. Joe is absolute crack. It is the best thing I've ever had in my life. Bendable arms. Now, honorable mentions to Star Wars line, which was fantastic. The vehicles were the most intense ever, right? But they weren't as good as G.I. Joe. So I would just mix Star Wars stuff with G.I. Joe. And I make G.I. Joe run with all the Star Wars stuff. Because I hated the, hey, look at me, I can't do anything, and the lightsaber that slips up out of the arm and all that. I couldn't stand that, but I loved the characters, so I had everything. All right, and we made a joke yesterday, I believe it was, when we were talking, and the last one on my list, which is actually, it's like number 2, is Mask.
Mask figures. Yes,
I love them.
quite possibly some of the best vehicles and vehicle interaction with smaller figures you've ever gotten.
I absolutely loved them. I thought the way they transformed out and beefed up and did all this stuff, I thought it was fantastic. Why they haven't done a movie on this? Like it's kind of cool. You throw a helmet on the character, go kind of Mad Max style, and you get knocked out of your vehicle. Your helmet gives you like a superpower.
I'm surprised they haven't updated. That's a property that's like ripe for the updating, since everything they like to do nowadays is just take an old property and update it. Mask is kind of like long past due for an update.
They need to do 6-inch line Mask with the vehicles. Ha. They need to step up their game. I've been wanting a Voltron that's fully posable, right? That transforms, and the lions are fully posable. And all we still get till today is still the same old stuff. Just like Transformers gets an honorable mention, but not really because I didn't like them. I love them. I love them, but I didn't have an action figure. Hold on. Give me Megatron. Like this.
Yeah.
Megatron. Look, fully posable, can still transform. I didn't even want him to transform, honestly. I want the figure to look like the cartoon character. Where's my guy for that? Why did it take so long for that?
Yeah.
You know, you wonder if they're just pumping them out on purpose or whatever.
Well, if you watch the Toys That Made Us, they on Netflix, they give a breakdown during the Transformer episode about how they were actually Diaclone was the series from Japan, and the United States kind of married that with something they had going on. There was two action figure lines that kind of came together originally before they even had like the names of the characters, which is why you had guys like Soundwaves that were cassettes, and then you had like a series of cars and jets. So there was like two different lines of characters that they kind of smashed together, two different toy lines, and then they presented it to the American public along with a cartoon. Okay, so
I have one more. Last honorable mention.
Okay.
He-Man.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe were awesome. It was interesting. They all had muscles, still had the problems with the movement.
Yeah.
But something about everything about them, just like the Thundercats, we spoke about this earlier today, and I just absolutely loved. I didn't like the Thundercats line of figures. I honestly did not. I want, give me the 6-inch, multi-posable, all of them. Why can't we have that by now? Right? Like, I'm like, right? Give me my stuff. But He-Man as well. I always thought the story was great. The movie was garbage. Like, it's cult garbage. It really is. I watched it, was so depressed. I'm like, why can they just not make this character correct? And then I just gave up on him. But I have the power. Once again, the most used word back then. Everybody was saying that when that came out.
Oh yeah, no, totally, man. Like that's like, well,
right. Your boy Baz, right? We all grew up together. We were there when that was created and came out and grabbed me like he was He-Man and said that he had the power. I almost believed it, and he lifted me into the air. And I was like, he has the power. It works. Right? So it was awesome. And there was like this awesomeness to it. So the toy line carried that, but it's just not going to ever be as cool as Sabretooth until you guys pull it together and give me a Lino. That's not $100.
Well, the Masters of the Universe Classics was an updated version of the original Masters of the Universe figures. They are multi-posable, and they have newer sculpts and everything else. Those are pretty much what they're doing with the Thundercats now. That was the Masters of the Universe Classics line that was basically ongoing since 2008. Okay, my top 5. I'm going to start with 5 and go through 1. These are mine in order. Number 5, Transformers Generation 1 only. And the reason why is because love the cartoon, love the property. The action figures themselves, I remember as a kid playing with the Transformers figures, and I never really played Transformers with my Transformer figures. They didn't have Sentinels back in the day. We were big X-Men fans.
Yeah.
They didn't have Sentinel toys. So when I was a kid, late 80s, early 90s, the Transformer figures were my Sentinels. And I loved the fact that they could transform, and it didn't matter to me that they couldn't really move that much because the Sentinels themselves were like these giant robots from the X-Men. They were kind of clunky and moved along. But I used the Transformer figures as my Sentinels, although I honor the Transformers as like one of my favorite properties ever. But I'm just talking about action figure lines in general. So number 5 goes to Transformers.
And honorable mention to the best movie in the 80s.
Oh, God, the Transformers movie from 86 was, please, another time. Okay, number 4 for me is Marvel Legends. Now, my list is kind of mixed up. I had it mixed up between what my favorite action figure lines of all times and what action figures I played with as a kid that left a lasting impact on me. So Marvel Legends, number 4, discovered them right when I was hitting college, and I remember the first few waves that came out, I was actually going to buy just a few of them. I was drawing at the time. And I was starstruck that, like you had said, here are the updated versions with the full posability and everything else, just like you went through. And I was going to use them to draw. I was drawing comics at the time. I was trying to draw comics at the time. And I was going to use their bodies basically as models to draw pictures with. And then that just spiraled into I have to own every freaking Marvel Legend from the Toy Biz days. So number 4, the Marvel Legends. Number 3 for me is the Toy Biz Marvel X-Men figures. Now, why am I putting the Toy Biz Marvel X-Men figures over the Marvel Legends and the Transformers? Well, number 1, the Transformers were my sentinels for those Marvel figures, the X-Men line. And I played with those figures almost the most as a kid. Those were probably my second most played with action figure line as a kid, the line of the Toy Biz original X-Men line. I remember you coming home one day with the Wolverine, the one with the mask that kind of came off and looked like a ring, and the hand had like the thing that popped out, and the spikes came, the things came out of his hand. And I took that figure and I took a bunch of toilet paper and I had to rip through all the toilet paper and shred it up, and I was like, wow, Wolverine could actually like cut through stuff without like the secret was, remember, the claws snapped on and kind of bent off. So I played with those figures the most, and I had the most fun and the most fun memories as a kid with that line specifically. So they hold my number 3 spot. Number 2, DC Universe Classics. I'm a big DC guy over Marvel. The DC Universe Classics figures completely blew my mind. I didn't even know they were coming out. I was in Toys R Us one day with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I had seen the first line, which was like Batman, Etrigan the Demon, Penguin, and a couple other characters. I were in that first wave. And I picked up that Batman figure, and I said, I can't believe I'm holding a multi-posable 6-inch Batman figure in my hand that looks like a Superpowers figure. Now, the reason why number 2 is DC Universe Classics and not Superpowers is because the DC Universe Classics figures are the ultimate versions of the Superpowers figures. So Superpowers was, when I was a kid, it was my introduction into just falling in love with the DC characters in general. And the art of Jose Luis Garcia Lopez on the back cards of those figures just completely blew my mind. You squeeze the legs, the hands go up and down like this. I played with them a lot as a kid, but they were more kind of passed down through you. And then when I was older, I got the DC Universe Classics figures, and that's why they hold the number 2 spot. And I pretty much collected every figure from that line. I mean, I even got the Commandy figure. That's how invested I was with that. And my number 1 favorite action figure line of all time is G.I. Joe, because G.I. Joe was the vehicles, dude. The vehicles and the play sets. You could have a play set that was this big, from like where I'm sitting now, so about 3 feet high, and the figures were like it was basically Nakatomi Plaza to these figures, So between the amount of accessories that they all came with and the cool characters, the property was just great, and I loved it. So mad props to G.I. Joe line, my favorite action figure line of all time. And I played the most with those figures as well. G.I. Joe isn't my favorite property of all time, but I played the most with those figures because it was just, you had the G.I. Joe figures, right? So you could play a battle with your G.I. Joes, right? Then I would take certain G.I. Joe figures that looked like characters that I liked from certain movies and reenact my favorite movie scenes with those characters. Like I would put a team of G.I. Joes together and reenact like the ending of Young Guns.
With Predator.
What?
I did that with Predator, with G.I. Joe.
Predator, exactly. So you can kind of like, because they were military men and they were all cool and had their own unique thing, they lended themselves very well to properties that had multiple characters of like movie properties or other IPs that had, multiple different characters. So it was like, Tunnel Rat he had like the bandana, right, with the stuff on his face. So he was like the cool little sneaky guy. But he didn't have to be Tunnel Rat. He could have been the guy from Predator with the bandana or something like that.
Yeah.
So you were able to do a lot of different things with those figures. That's why it makes my number 1 of all time. Okay, wrapping up the show, which we're not wrapping it up just yet, but we're gonna start winding it down, and we're gonna talk about the TerrifiCon 2018 recap. So I'm gonna talk about TerrifiCon, and then you're gonna interject. I know you weren't there, but I want you to give me your opinion on things. I'm going to ask you a few questions concerning the vibe that I had overall at the place. TerrifiCon this year was a big letdown compared to last year. I did not like it as much. It was in a new venue, much bigger venue. It was 4 times the size. TerrifiCon is a comic convention that takes place at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut every year. They normally have it at the convention center. The convention center is very nice. It has warm colors, lots of beiges and very light oranges, and the carpeting is nice. You can walk around and your feet don't get tired all day long, right? So it gets really big, and they build another addition onto the Mohegan Sun lot, which is where they're going to be having car shows now. So it's 4 times the size of their convention center. the comic convention is growing. Let's have it in this sterile, white, bright light. You go into a car show, you want to see the cars, you want to see the reflection of the lights off the cars, you want that stuff to pop off of the cold cement floor, and it lends itself very nicely to see nice big vehicles with cherry red paint jobs. Does not work when you want to have a comic convention because it makes it look like a flea market. Okay, so it had a very cold, non-cool vibe. It killed the atmosphere. We had a couple of cool moments that I'll mention in a little while that made up for it, but just the overall vibe was a letdown. Did not like it as much, did not enjoy it as much. Even my kids picked up on it. My daughter, this was her first con. She enjoyed the hell out of it. Captain Awesome was like, there's something about this that I'm not feeling. Like, I like it, I'm enjoying myself, but there's just something that's not quite as magical as it was last year. Because it's 4 times the size, you have a lot more room to walk around, but it seems like it's empty when it's not. Like there could have been like 2,000 or 3,000 people on the floor at any given time, possibly even more, and it still seemed empty because that's how big it was. The question I ask you is, you can have something that's not really that great, but because of the atmosphere and the vibe that you're feeling in the venue it's at, or in the place that it is, it could make something that's not as great seem greater than it really is. Then you can have something that's really awesome. You can go and see Metallica play live. You can go to a comic convention that's supposedly be great. And because the vibe just isn't right, there's something about it that makes something great seem not as great. So do you have any experiences with that? Do you believe in that type of stuff?
Well, you know, you can slap something together and still make it work and feel like that homey kind of feeling like, yeah, this works. But a sterile environment's a sterile environment, you know? If it's bright lights and there's nothing more than that, it kind of starts feeling like anyone who's been in the emergency room, you know, you kind of have that kind of lighting. If it's just a big box, right? Usually
Yeah.
there's
Oh, if you were in a
carpeting and
hospital, like
things
emergency.
hanging from the walls. Yeah, yeah, you don't that makes for an unsettling time, and probably the lights in the place, you know, for all you conspiracy guys, you know, the certain lighting, if it's not correct, will drive people nuts a little bit and make you feel off.
Uneasy, weird. Like you can walk into somebody's house, stranger's house, and feel like, okay, this is kind of like a weird vibe I'm getting from this place. Maybe there's not a lot of pictures on the wall. Maybe there's not a lot of love and enjoyment and family meals that happen in the house. You kind of feel that and sense that. Go into another person's house and you feel right at home where you can just jump on the couch, flip on the TV, and say, hey, you know, Ma, even though it's not your mother, you know, what's for dinner? You know, you feel welcome and at home. And this con went from giving you that type of vibe to giving you the cold type of vibe. So
We've been victim to this with many things. The bigger it gets, it takes the shine away. What originally drove you to it to begin with, it becomes more zombie-like and more unfocused on what's really important, what made it important to begin with, and makes it MTV.
yeah,
You
kind of
know,
like
I don't even know how MTV is still there. Does anyone even watch that? Right? Like,
they had the lowest viewership.
nobody wants that. Is what right. So, like, when you're there, do you want that? I
Yeah,
remember. All right. So when you and I and a few others were at Comic-Con one year, I remember thinking this is whack when I was standing with Gary Coleman, and still alive, and y'all were like, "Leave him alone, Frank." And I was like, "Nah." I was like, "What you talking about?" And he was like, "I don't like this guy." And I was like, "Did you say something about me?" Right? And I was just playing it up, but I remember thinking, "This is Clown Central." Like it went from awesome, right? Like we went there one year and there were like Jedis and stormtroopers, and then it turned into something else. It
right.
like glamorized and became part of the big industry. And you miss the little when performing in CBGBs,
Yeah,
right? Remember how small but awesome is just big enough? Like it was almost like we'd prefer to perform there rather than the big giant venue, which is what you're driving to get at. But if it's not set up right with the sound or this or that, it throws the whole thing off and you're beat,
yeah.
right? You're absolutely beat. So yeah, venues mean a lot. And if it's not
Yeah.
hooked up the right way, it's just it's beat, as one of our friends would say repeatedly.
I feel like the guy who organized it had good intentions, but maybe he didn't prepare himself when they offered him the bigger venue for all that extra stuff.
Yeah, it didn't have a lot of decoration. It just seemed like colder and kind of like distant, not as like.
I think less displays this year too. There was a lot of displays last year, like all together. So you were just walking around and you felt like you were seeing things, like you just kept seeing.
Like a bazaar.
Left, right, down the line. Ugh.
Up and down the lines, kind of like cattle. You know, it felt very swap meetish as opposed to Comic-Con-ish. So, Mitch, if you're ever going to listen to this, which you're probably not, or if anybody knows about TerrifiCon, tell them you need to go back to the convention center.
And we want graphic novels.
Yes, and there was no graphic novels there either. That's another thing.
I did not have a graphic novel.
There was no graphic novels there. There was I had overheard these guys that sell like the old time comics, and they said that basically between buying a hotel, shipping their stuff over, setting their stuff up, and the return that they get on their investment, they're spending like $2,000 to $3,000 between buying the table, getting the hotel, and getting there for the so many nights, and not being able to make the money back or just barely break even. So that's not good for the industry, because if prices are going to continue to rise like that and cons are going to continue in that trend, you're only going to have San Diego and New York and nothing else, because you're going to go to these conventions, and if you're not buying a $50, $60, $70, $100, some guys want $600, $700 for autographs or pictures with famous people, Comic-Cons are going to be less about comics, because the comic guys can't make their money back, because it's just everything else is being so overpriced.
Do you remember when you go to any of the cons, you could just, in the beginning, you could just kind of mosey up to your favorite guy?
Yeah.
Say what's up. Or when did they start putting a publicist there going, back up and don't ask the question unless it's on the list? It's like, dude, I just waited 3 hours. And what is this waiting 3 hours to see this guy business? When the cons first started, it was nothing like this. It turned into a circus.
Yeah.
It was very...
Certain guys you could walk right up to. We met Sam Jones when we went there, last quarter. And we got jet helmets autographed by Sam Jones. Flash number 19, right? Quarterback, New York Jets. So he was really cool. You were able to walk right up to him. He had a little bit of a line, very little. Not that nobody was going up to him, but people were consistently going up to him, but in a way that wasn't like the line was just mad freaking long. Ralph Macchio's line was mad long. Henry Winkler's line was mad long. Rightfully so. It's the Fonz, and the Karate Kid, especially since that new TV show came out. But as far as just being able to walk up to people, like we were waiting online. We weren't even waiting online. There was like 3 people online at the time to go meet Palm. I don't even know how to say her last name. She's the girl that played Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. She was there. And Grayson just wanted to walk up to her and talk to her and say, hey, loved you in Infinity War and all that. And Zoe wanted to meet her as well. We weren't going to spend the money to meet this girl. We were like, all right, just run up to her, say hello. We're going to be back here offline, so we don't meet her. It's not like we're going up to her as a family and just trying to shake her hand. We're like, okay, the kids are going to run up to her and talk to her. We're standing way back, 30, 40 feet back.
I knew that was going to happen, by the way.
And they were like, look, if you're not paying, you need to leave and come back later or something. Like when there's less people here, we're not just going to have the kids like say hello to the actors. And that was kind of shitty, and we got a bad taste in our mouth from that. So that was uncool, because you were able to just walk up to them like, okay, we do have paying customers, but we're going to take 30 seconds for a 7-year-old to walk up to her and just shake her hand and say, hey, you're an awesome character in the movie and it's nice to meet you, and then wave bye and whatever, and then keep it moving. So that the people who are paying can have their 2 to 3 minute interaction and have their stuff signed. We get it. But for 30 seconds for kids, it's a fine line, though. It is a fine line. I understand it. I understand the come back later type stuff. But when you got these guys, and they're people too, they got to take breaks. They got to leave. They got to go to the bathroom, have their lunch. Some of these actors only stay for like 1 or 2 hours and then they're out. And it wasn't even like the line was that long. I can understand if the line was long. It was like 2 or 3 people on the line. So they could have made an amends for that. Like the actor could have been like, all right, relax, let the kids through. They didn't, but it is what it is. I'm sure it wasn't her fault. I'm sure she probably didn't even know, because we were about 20 or 30 feet away from her in the first place before we even got stopped to even approach her in the first place. However, Sam Jones was great. Here's my quick Sam Jones story. We walk up to him. He's just like you would imagine him to be from watching the movie Ted. He's mad funny. He puts on music videos for Grayson, asks him what his favorite song is. He starts playing the We Will Rock You music video. He signs the autographs for us. He takes pictures. Then he's like, well, we should take another picture in case that one doesn't come out right. So then he comes out from behind the booth and he goes, why don't we start taking family photos? We got like a family photo album with Flash Gordon. So he's talking to us, taking multiple pictures with us, signing stuff for us. He gives Miss Bell a whole crash course on. So the second video he played, we got 2 full music video lengths.
We Will Rock You, and then the YouTube video like started like going into the next video, and it was I'm Bad.
I'm Bad from Michael Jackson, right? So Grayson recognizes I'm Bad from the Despicable Me 3 movie. Oh, I like this song. He goes, oh, you like this song, huh? So apparently he's like a big video buff because he goes into this whole story about how Martin Scorsese was the director of the Bad video, and then starts talking to the wife about how Wesley Snipes' first acting gig was as the head dance-off villain in that video against Michael Jackson.
I had no idea.
He was the head of the rival gang in the dance-off. That was Wesley Snipes' first gig, by the way, in the Martin Scorsese directed Bad video. So we got a crash course in music videos from Sam Jones, and we got a bunch of autographs and a ton of pictures with him. And it was just a very good experience. That made up for it as well. We also met a few comic creators at the show. I was able to shake hands with who did I shake hands with? The guy that Mike Zeck. He's the art on Captain America Annual 8. He did all the Secret Wars art. I went up to him. I thanked him for making Captain America my second favorite superhero of all time because of his artwork, and he gave me a nice little story about the original painting he had done that I had in my room as a kid because I told him about the painting when Captain America is jumping over all the mafia guys and kind of like making his way through the crowd and messing them up, beating them up. And he was like, oh, funny story about that. The guy that actually owns that and bought that from me was here earlier. And he tells me a nice little story about it. I shook his hand. I said, hey, thanks, man, and keep up the good work. And he was very appreciative and nice as well. And that's it for my Comic-Con stories. I wanted to show something real quick. I went on a trip recently upstate to a fair at the Rhinebeck Fair, and apparently they have an Ollie's near the hotel we were staying at. I had no idea what the hell an Ollie's was. So they had an Ollie's. Go to Ollie's if you have an Ollie's near you. Go to it because apparently they have really cool action figures and graphic novels for really cheap. The book section was crazy. I got this.
Wow.
I got this plus about 5 or 6 other books for my kids for $40. And this is, I got Countdown to Infinite Crisis. This is the explosive aftermath to Identity Crisis. I never read this, and I loved Identity Crisis. So I wanted to read this, so I bought this. This is a very small trade, right? $12.99. This was $3. I got the JSA run from Jeff Johns, right? I'm just going to show this one off. I got number 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 10 on the Jeff Johns run. And I have the other ones I couldn't fill in the blanks for in the mail. And they retailed at Ollie's for $3.99 and $2.99 respectively. So I pretty much got, and the cover price on these is $19.99, $12.99, $19.99, $24.99 is this one. This one's $19.99. So I got a bunch of $20 trades that you would find on Amazon for anywhere between $10 and $20, because obviously Amazon has everything for cheap, for $3 each. So go to your Ollie's because they're re-upping their stock come the fall, and they have a lot of cool leftover old school trades. So that's what I got, and I'm going to be restarting my JSA run from Jeff Johns when the first one comes in. I had to actually order that because they didn't have that in the store. But if you ever get a chance to go to an Ollie's, go to them because they got a lot of really cool stuff for cheap. And that's all I have to say about that.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was. I got lost in there. I was just spending way too much time in the aisles. I tore up the racks, just looking through everything I could. Okay, I have nothing else on the docket for tonight. Is there anything you would like to say, Mr. Amazing Larry, before we conclude this episode of the Red Cup Review Live?
I love fully posable action figures, and I can't wait for more.
Excellent.
I've been waiting for my whole life.
Yes, excellent stuff. You guys can find Mr. Frank Castle, Frankie FearLess. He does a podcast on Saturday nights right before this airs at 9 o'clock. Where can they find your podcast?
It's a truthfrequencyradio.com.
Okay.
You can tune in at 9. You could also get us on iHeartRadio. You just tune in at the same time, and that's Eastern Standard Time. We go 9 to 10 o'clock, and we dig deep into the spiritual side of stuff. So it's
Excellent.
pretty interesting. Check us out. And if you like, check us out at IamWeAreFearless.com. That's where we have all the T-shirts and hats and mugs and beach blankets and everything with all your favorite designs from all the different artists from Fearless.
Yes, and what's cool, especially about the Fearless shirt that I purchased, was that some of their artists actually take famous, okay, the Run DMC, right? You have like Run, you guys remember the Run DMC with the red lines and the black lettering. This says, well, what does it say? Fearless. Just Fearless on it, right? It's just simple, fearless. Great saying, and it's just very simple, powerful message. And they have a lot of other really cool T-shirts. So that's the one that I like the best. So that's why I bought it, because I like old school hip hop too. And it was kind of cool. So go check out IamWeAreFearless.com and go check out Truth Frequency Radio, or go to the little iHeartRadio app and type in Fearless, right?
Yeah. Or if you want to get crazy and hear Rob Banks and Frankie FearLess, old school style, doing hip hop, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, you could stay right on YouTube and just go to HEISTCLICK. Heist Click, and you could listen to everything we've ever done is up there right now. Enjoy it.
There is a lot of stuff on there that I am quite proud of, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I'm at doing this for you guys today. So go check out Heist Click. I shout them. I use the music in a lot of my videos. I'm part of it. And check out Frankie FearLess on Truth Frequency Radio. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Rob Banks, your host. We will be back next week with a new guest to yet be announced. I'm trying to get some new guests in. I want to get a few comic creators in. I'm working on some stuff for the fall.
And don't forget to check out our interviews.
Yes, don't forget to check out the interviews from the TerrifiCon. So the last video I posted was an interview with Billy Tucci. So we're moving up in the world. The one and only Billy Tucci, creator of She, artist on Batman and Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn and all that good stuff. I got an interview with him, the last video I posted. We are moving up in the world, folks, but we can't do it without you. So please subscribe, like, share, official Red Cup Review on Instagram and Facebook and all that other stuff. And that's basically it. So just like the page and come and join us next week. Thanks for tuning in. Mr. Frank Castle will be seeing you around. Don't stop your end of the broadcast. I'm going to stop mine. And we'll see you guys around. See you next week.